Time to get the lift out of the shop and get it over to my new shop. So, starting to dismantle the lift today. I drained all the fluid. Basically, it's just transmission fluid, like Dexron 3. That's what I put in there. Drained the fluid out of the lines overnight. I did this last night, actually, and that way I don't have to have the lines all full. And, gotta take the pump off, gotta take all the hoses off, gotta take the safeties, gotta take the arms off. The top bar here has to come off. Overhead safety switch. Let's get busy. Figured I'd take a break from the time lapse and just kind of show you guys an update. So I forgot to undo the cables before I unhooked the hydraulic lines. So you kind of saw me on this one. I had to jack it up with a floor jack to get the cable out from the bottom. I would recommend doing it a different way. However, this is basically ready to strip down. As you can see, the top piece, the header, if you will, all that's holding that up there now is those 4 bolts, and then that whole assembly will come down with the hydraulic lines. I'm not going to bother disconnect the hydraulic lines from the rest of the assembly. So once I get that top piece down, I can then start undoing the bolts at the base. There's the arms, the motor itself, the bar, the safety bar across the top, the other cable, those arms. Pretty much ready to start dismantling the rest of it. is, guys, a big empty shop now. I took those anchors and I just pounded them down through the ground so that they're flush. Figure that'll be fine. They'll never be reused, and chances are if someone gets another lift, it's not gonna have the same bolt pattern anyway. And they're probably not gonna want it in the same spot, so. Let's move this thing up to the new place. I like this old tractor, she does pretty good. Got the lift post all stood up. I had some spillage there. Hydraulic fluid there, got a little carried away. While it was on the trailer, the hydraulic fluid was leaking out of these ports, and it kind of made a mess. But anyways, we got the posts up, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to get these oriented in the bay so I can best utilize the space. So I'm gonna try pull a truck in here and see what kind of room I have. Hopefully I can get these lift posts to the point where I'm happy with them and I have room up front here so I can walk around, maybe with an engine crane too, floor jack, and I can have room on the sides. I gotta figure out the best place before I drill anchors for these things. I recruited some help. We got that top bar up there, and those bolts are just finger tight because I still have to level up the posts themselves. So the posts are just kind of sitting there, no lags or anything in them. And we are ready to move on to tightening those bolts and getting this thing level. The lift post is level, or plumb, I guess you'd call it if you're in the building trades. That's the main thing, guys, is you gotta have these posts perfect. Because as the vehicle goes up in the air, the arms, when they're installed, they can move around a little bit underneath the vehicle, which can cause some sketchiness. So the biggest thing is just getting the lift post plumb, both of them. I have been messing with the placement of this lift now for too long, and I'm starting to drive myself crazy. Basically what I've decided is, from that wall to the center of this lift post, it's 12 feet. 12 foot smack dab in the center of that post. I've got plenty of room from here to the back of the shop so I can bring a full-size pickup in, crew cab long bed, and open the doors wide on both sides, so I'll have plenty of room when I do windshields. So that's my main line of work, guys. We do auto glass, so I need to have room here so that I can get around the vehicle and work on it. I'm not prioritizing the use of my lift, but I still want to have room in front of the vehicle to walk around whenever I have the lift occupied by a vehicle. So we've got something here. I'll make another video of that. Those are lights that I put up in this building. So guys, let's drill some holes in this concrete. this is my grandfather's hammer drill that we've used for years and years, and it is a excellent tool to have laying around. It's not something you use every day, but it's worth its weight in gold when you need it. 3/4. Look at that gnarly looking drill bit. Alright guys, so this is what I'm dealing with for hardware here. I went and got 10-inch concrete anchors. Are these necessary? No. But these are what they send you with a lift. Now, these are technically called 6-inch anchors, but let me show you something. So here we have a 3/4 inch, 6-inch concrete anchor. This is a wedge type anchor. So by the time you pound this into the concrete, it might be 6 inches overall, not even 5.5 inches. By the time you pound this into the concrete, you got 4.5 inches actually sticking it into your concrete. Now by the time you thread this, and this actually draws into the concrete, I mean, you might only be left with 4 inches sticking into the concrete itself. So what I've done, because I dug around my lift post bases, I've got about 1 foot of concrete now. So these will be in the ground roughly 10 inches, and then you take away, you know, 1 inch or so for the threads, and I'm going to be having probably 8.5 or 9 inches into the concrete. And this is a 3/4 inch as well. I feel like that's going to be a lot safer. That's what I did with my old lift. It's fine. Probably these ones are perfectly adequate. I'm just a little overkill on everything, so that's the reason why I did this. So I've got 10 inches will be about right here. So luckily, we've got enough drill bit. So let's see what happens here. Let's see how smooth this goes. Brand new concrete, just a couple months old. Let's turn it on drill mode. That might do a little different. Shop vac squeal. Alright guys, if you've ever installed a wedge anchor like this before, they're really easy. So what I always like to do, take a little bit of anti-seize, put it on those threads at the top. That just helps lubricate the thread so that whenever this thing starts tightening, it has less resistance on the threads. So guys, just take that, leave the nut proud of the end of the stud so you don't flare it. Just put that down into the ground. Now, I'm going to leave that just a little loose because I've still got 4 more of these to do. So I'm going to leave that a little loose and shim it and adjust it all before I start tightening these up. Alright guys, so that concrete anchor, that hit dirt, and so that was a little shallow. So that must have been on the outside of where I poured the concrete heavy. But this one, and that one all went down pretty good. But this one right here in the middle, This one right here in the middle, this is a perfect example as to why I use these concrete anchors. So this one, even though I drilled the hole deep enough, this will not go down any further. I believe I've hit a chunk of rebar. So let's see. It's 3.5 inches up. So we've lost that much of the bolt. And we're still in further than that whole entire length of that 5.5 inch anchor. Now, if we had to put this in there and something similar had happened, we would have been, you know, even shorter on the threads. So we can still fix this. The threads are kind of boogered right now, so we're gonna have to get that nut off of there and cut it shorter. So this is kind of funky because see here now we've got an anchor that turns. No matter how much I pound that, I can't get that down any further. And there's no way we're pulling that back through. So I'm gonna try here just to get this nut to turn because I think I've boogered up the threads on the stud itself. So I'm gonna have to cut this probably, but I was hoping, to get that past the boogered part of the threads. I might have not yet, we'll see. I'm afraid I might have cross-threaded that whole thing. And by just winding that nut on there, it might not be helping, but it seems to be getting easier, so I think we've gotten past the boogered edge. I think I smushed the threads on the end of that bolt too, so. Oh well, you live and learn, guys. So now what I can do is I can go up here to avoid hurting the threads below, and we'll just go like this. A little bit of elbow grease, but we'll get her. Sometimes concrete doesn't act the way you want it to, but I've got all those anchors in there. The only one that was really funky was this one here. I don't know what happened. I believe I hit a chunk of rebar, so. Anyway, guys, look at that. Doesn't get much better than that. I'm pretty happy with that. Whew. Now, the shims are sticking out. I can trim those off. So now, these do have a torque spec, guys. I gotta get out my torque wrench, bring those to the final torque. Then I'm gonna probably cut the threads off of that and this one, just so they don't look ugly sticking up like that. So I learned from the last one, I'm gonna put the nut itself down a little bit below the thread so that when I pound on there, it won't destroy the threads on the nut or booger the threads. So, I mean, I felt like that was helping by having the nut up like that, but I think in reality it was just kind of hurting the threads on the nut. So anyway, tip learned. It's not like I do this stuff every day, so I guess you gotta learn on the job sometimes. All right, guys, I have been busy behind the scenes. I've got this lift just about ready to go. I've got all the arms, I've got the cables going up overhead. I've got the thing wired up. I know it might be hard to see because those lights are so ridiculously bright, but I do have the overhead line going up to a junction box. I've got the safeties timed on both sides. That's a little bit time consuming to get this adjustment just right so that it pulls from both sides. I've got my shelf there for all my different adapters. And I don't know if it's just a happy little accident or if this thing is designed for this, but it turns out that a transmission quart, or probably any motor oil quart, actually threads into this opening in the reservoir, so that's kind of cool. I did have to top it off with 2 quarts, but guys, she's just about all ready. I've got all these torqued to about 100 foot-pounds, not the final torque. I'm thinking 110 foot-pounds should be appropriate. That's what they claim on the box anyway, 110 foot-pounds. That right there. I'm not quite sure if we're going to go that high. because it's already starting to cup the washers just a little bit. So I think 100 foot-pounds may be the final torque. So anyway, just about ready, guys. One important thing to note, guys, the dipstick tube comes off from the plug, and just make sure you catch that before it falls down into oblivion and you'll never get it back. So I'm going to actually re-glue this so that we don't have that issue. I don't know why I thought to check it, but clearly not staying together. So these cables were kind of a little bit of a nuisance. As you can see, there's one down there and it goes around a pulley all the way up overhead, clear down here. And then this one, if you can see it, and then that one goes down, up overhead, and meets here. So what those do, for the most part, is if you have an uneven load on the lift, those cables keep the thing from moving around side to side. So it doesn't rely on hydraulics alone. So these are kind of a pain to get adjusted quite right. Well, this is how I adjust them. I lift it up, and whenever it goes down, I get it so that both of them fall at the same time. It's kind of tricky. Obviously, you don't want a lot of tension on these because those don't really need the tension, and it just causes things to prematurely wear out. So that's it, guys. She's pretty much 100% ready to rock and roll. Let's try this thing out. The shop looks a little different. I don't know if you guys remember just from that last clip, I got quite a bit done here. I made a bunch of videos, guys, on the building of this garage addition. So check those videos out. I'll see if I can put some links in the description for those. It's pretty exciting. You know, I got the furnace up there now, and I got the lights up there, and I got all kinds of stuff done. I got the doorway finally installed. Still got a lot to do. I'll probably put some more videos out in the future. But I've been putting plywood. This has been a big deal. Been putting plywood up overhead. I'm gonna put insulation on top of that. That way this space can be heated. Got a hot air furnace in this bay. As you can see, I've been working on putting the plywood up, having to put 2x4s in between the collar ties. I did get a new toy, nice Coates tire balancer, and one of the, I believe that's a 50/60 Coates rim clamp with a robo arm, so pretty cool. Anyways, back to the lift. Got a little Ford F-150 here. We're gonna take this thing up in the air and see how the lift works. I'm convinced that there's air in the lines, so it's probably gonna make, you know, it might jump a little bit as it goes up in the air, but I think it's gonna be just fine. The air will work its way out of the lines. Well, it works. That's good news, right? Well, now I can work on vehicles and not have to bend over and mess around. So I'm glad the lift is finally in my new shop. Super pumped that it's working and operational. I'm gonna wrap up the video here, guys. The video is getting kind of long, so appreciate you guys that actually watch the videos and enjoy them. So we'll see you in the next one.